all please turn to your prayer before study at the back? Your rustling of papers.
What?
No, I just had your rustling of papers. I'm just waiting. It makes you seem busy if you rustle papers. Okay, here we go. Christ, my Lord, the giver of light and wisdom, who opened the eyes of the blind man and transformed the fishermen into wise heralds and teachers of the gospel through the coming of the Holy Spirit, shine also in my mind the light of the grace of the Holy Spirit. Grant me discernment, understanding, and wisdom in learning. Enable me to complete my assignments and to abound in every good work. For to you I give honor and glory. Amen. Most blessed Lord, send the grace of your Holy Spirit on me to strengthen me, that I may learn well the subject I am about to study, and by it become a better person, for your glory, the comfort of my family, and the benefit of your church and our nation. Amen. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, I want to do something a little different today. Now, just in a different order, just a slightly different order. And then we can just talk to our heart's content and not run out of time at all with all the stuff I want to talk about. I just collected from you it's called a persuasive essay, right? Because you're trying to persuade me that the Greeks should have attacked Troy, or they just so should not have attacked Troy. It was worst idea in the world. And so that is the type of writing we're going to do for most of the rest of the year. We're going to practice that, coming up with pros and cons and choosing a side. But today, there were questions I could ask and we could start another paper. For example, should Clytemnestra have killed her husband Agamemnon with an axe in the bathtub? No. Should Odysseus have killed all the suitors in his house? The ancient world would say, oh, so yes, bunch of jerks. And by the way, I felt so bad. This is Olivia and Emma. I so wish, why did we not tell everyone about the play? Like, why did I not send it out? Maybe your mom did. Olivia and Emma were just the last 2 weekends in a play about the Odyssey, about Odysseus. And I loved the way they did the arrow through the axes. That was just so, I loved it. It just really moved me because, this is my giving my little TED talk here, because people have been telling that story for 3,000 years. And it's like, yeah, shoot them all down. And Athena, and you've got these crazy monsters, and the Cyclops was horrifying, by the way. And so it just excites me so much that it's still as good a story 3,000 years later as it was long ago. And so I loved it. So if you didn't make it over to junior theater, you missed something really good. But the point is that we still celebrate and tell this amazing story. But anyway, I'm sorry, Christian, you wanted to add something. Did you raise your hand?
I came out of my mind.
That's okay. If it comes back in, raise your hand again. And I'll shut up this time.
Okay.
See how good I did?
I think Odysseus should just slap each one of the suitors and say, get out of my house.
Can anybody think why, this is something we talked about with the paper you just did, can anybody think why the ancient Greeks would have thought it very, very appropriate for him to just kill them all? What did they do?
Because they tried to steal his wife.
Yes, and what is the bigger picture? What is that a violation of?
They tried to steal his kingdom.
Yeah, and what's that a violation of?
They were unhospitable.
Hospitality. Violation of hospitality. It's a big deal. And you know what? As Christians, it really should be a big deal to us too, right? Because, and we talked about that,
Killing people for it, though.
No, not killing people. But on the flip side, like being hospitable, being a good host, and also being a good guest should be important to us, yes.
Why weren't those guys off at war?
Excellent question, but the answer may be that at this point Odysseus had been gone 20 years. So if they were 5 years old, yeah, the war lasted 10 years, the trip lasted 10 years, so he was gone 20 years. And so his son also had been a baby when he left, and now he's a young man. So if they were 5 or 6 years old when everybody left, they're like 25 or 26. This also means there is some sort of age difference between Penelope and the suitors, but we're not going to go there because that's kind of creepy. Anyway, I could have asked you some of these should this have happened, but I felt like there wasn't a lot in our book, right? Like, it's called the Trojan War, so it's not the story of Odysseus by himself, or it's not the story of Agamemnon and how his wife brutally killed him when he got home. And so it was just like one little chapter, and I just thought that's not enough material to really easily come up with ideas. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a step backwards, we're going to rewind, and do another one of these reports, where we find things that are interesting and important, just so we can practice our writing. And then we're going to start reading another book, and when we get a couple of chapters in on that book, we'll be able to ask another should question, okay? So I have a source for you, and, okay, just a second, let me look at my notes. Oh, this time we're going to do 3 paragraphs. So everybody, I'm going to just like slowly write this on the board. You can write this down if you want to, but it's mostly so everybody knows what's going on. This week. In other words, your homework for this week. Make outline. That's what you're doing this week.
All we have to do is make an outline?
Yes.
Do we have to do paragraphs?
What?
Do we have to do paragraphs too?
No, just do the paragraphs of being write the paper. So we're not, in other words, this is going to be a 2-week assignment. Does everybody understand? The paper we're starting is going to be due in 2 weeks. So all I really, you can do more than this if you want to, but all I really want you to do this week is make an outline. And then next week, you will write the paper. In between, next week, I want you to bring the outline to me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to roam through the room, and I'm going to peek over your shoulder, and I'm going to say, awesome outline. Or I'm going to say, oh, could we get another point on that? Or whatever. I'm just going to make sure everybody has an outline to write from. And then the writing of the paper will be easy, because you just kind of turn it into sentences again. I'm going to remind you next week, before you write the paper, about topics and clinchers and all that stuff, okay? But this week, I want you to concentrate on making an outline. Is that clear to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry to be so painfully...
Is it all about the Trojan War?
No, it's about Greek temples and architecture, which are awesome and which we actually be reading a lot about this next week. So you'll be making an outline, and you'll also be reading about them in the Dorothy Mills book. So what I would like everybody to do is find a blank. You can use the same place where you just wrote this. I don't care. It's just a blank piece of paper somewhere that you have available to you. And I would like you to write this. I'd like you to create an outline. We'll give it 5 points. Remember, you can put this over here. 4 to 7 points is what we're going for. Anywhere from 4 to 7.
Oh, crap.
I know. Emma, it is very hard to limit. But it is some of us who are really good with words, that is our challenge. And then some people who hate writing and they're not good with words, their challenge is to come up with 4 to 7. I have to put 3 over here just because I'm running out of room at the bottom, but you can just put them in a row, okay?
Are we not doing introductions or conclusions?
No, not,
Not a persuasive paper.
yeah, because it's not persuasive, but we will next time we do one.
I already
We'll
did
add those.
for my first persuasive.
Awesome. Well, you did these last year.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, so you kind of knew, you were ahead. So this is going to be your outline that you're going to use this week. So, and what are you going to do with this outline next week? And you're going to bring it here so I can look at it. And we're going to do one paragraph together to remind you how to do it. And then I'm going to let you do 2 paragraphs on your own. That way everybody's going to be different. Yay! Good morning, ladies. We just started talking about the next paper we're going to do. And we're going to go back and do one of these where we have a source and we're taking notes from the source. Okay? And then and if you have a paper for me, you can get it out while I hand these papers out. This is our source. I love, there we go. And there's, oh, okay. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Don't worry. No worries.
We need another one.
Apparently, I am unable to count. Okay, there's 3 of them there. Did I give you something wrong?
Yeah. This one. That's a little, I don't know who's out.
Oh. Okay. Oh, wait a minute.
What?
Grace, is this yours? I accidentally gave it to someone else. Yay! We had a controversy, well, not a controversy. We were searching for that one earlier, and I'm so glad you brought it back. Thank you. Okay. Everybody look at this resource with me, please. And we need to come up with 3 topics. And so let's take a look. We don't have to actually read the whole thing to get some ideas. What is a topic that seems to be talked about? Where, say that again? Hey, just a second. Who said?
It's at the beginning. It just says Greek life.
Oh, well,
I don't know if we can.
that's not written. You have to read the whole sentence to find out what. Greek life was dominated by religion. That's what it's about. So the title is what? Temples. So they're telling us this whole thing is about temples, though. So we can't really use temples as a subject, right? Because everything's about it. We need 3 things about temples. So do you see something, Emma, that might be a good?
Maybe they're talking about what they were made of.
Okay, they seem. I like it. I like it. One thing, because I see. My eyes are just skimming, but I see the words marble, terracotta, stone blocks. I see words like that. And okay, you don't have to. We're going to make a list of possible topics because we might have more than 3. So let's topic ideas. Materials for temples. What are temples made of, in other words? We also might, if we don't get a lot on that one, we could also say how, like of what and how are temples made. This seems like a subject we might get some information on. Does anybody see another thing that it looks like they give us a good amount of information on? Or, say again? Design. So we've got Corinthian capitals and lions' mouths and rosette capitals. That all seems designy, doesn't it? Temple design. And if you're not sure what we mean by temple design later, we could put how do they look? That's what we mean by that. How does a temple look? What's it decorated with? That seems like a topic. How about this weird thing on the back? These 3 things. Columns. Apparently columns are a big enough deal. There's 3 different kinds, and each kind has its own look. I think columns could be its own topic. We could write a paragraph about columns. And guess what? I'm looking at the bottom of the front page, and it says Temple of Ceres. And it's got a whole paragraph on the temple of Ceres, this particular temple. I feel like we could write a paragraph on the temple of Ceres, apparently. Does anybody know who Ceres is? That's her Roman name. Demeter. Do you know what does she do? What's her job?
She's a goddess of agriculture.
Agriculture, growing things. Remember Demeter's daughter Persephone got stolen by Hades, and she was really sad and depressed. And says Persephone has to stay there because those blasted pomegranate seeds. And so while Persephone's in Hades, Demeter gets really sad and she doesn't really take care of things. We're seeing it happen outside right now. Demeter is getting sad because Persephone has gone back to Hades and the leaves are starting to fall off the trees and the flowers are shriveling up and things are getting colder. But in April or so, Persephone will come back and spend some time with her mom, and then her mom will perk up again, and the flowers will grow and the leaves will grow back.
You could make a religion out of this.
You could make a religion out of this, and somebody did.
And I could totally believe you on it.
It's pretty cool. But we're all scientific, and we know why there are seasons. But I like this story better than the earth is tilted on its axis, and as it goes around. That's a boring story. Okay. All right, what else do we see? We have 4. We only need 3, and we have 4 already, but let's see if we have anything else. Oh, we got Zeus's temple here. It's not got much. We only have to come up with 4 things. So we might be able to. Hey. I got an idea. I got a brilliant idea. Look at this little box. It says Cape Sunion. Does everybody see that?
I see it.
And it says a 5th century marble temple to Poseidon. Okay. And then this one says Zeus. We could put them together. Poseidon and Zeus. We could just put them together and we could get a whole temples to Poseidon and Zeus, or 4 Poseidon and Zeus. And then we could come up. See how clever we can be? It's like, this doesn't tell me enough about that, but what if I just join it to another one and I turn it all into one big paragraph? Brilliant. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things to choose from, but you only need to choose 3. Do you want to do one together to remind us how to do it?
Yes.
Okay. Is there one that everyone would, which one should we do?
Poseidon and Zeus.
Poseidon and Zeus. See, because,
Temple
I like materials for
Tim-
temple.
okay, you know what? Here's what we're going to do.
We're going to raise our hands for a vote.
No. Because this is not a democracy. This is tyranny. No, it's not. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to draw a little box. You do not have to draw the box. Don't do anything until you hear about the box.
Someone's calling somebody.
I don't know who it is. It's not me.
Stop.
It's Persephone calling from the underworld saying, I wish I were home, Mom. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick one. I'm just going to, I'm going to pick one, and we're going to do an outline. If it's one you like, put it on your main outline. If it's one you don't like, just stick it in a box and don't use it.
Stick it in the box.
Stick it in a box.
Pandora's box.
Does that make sense to everybody? You don't have to use what we're about to do. But if you are, A, really interested in what we're about to outline, or B, just feeling a little lazy, it's totally fine. You can just use it. Now, that said, we're going to do the temples to Poseidon and Zeus. Temples, Poseidon, and Zeus.
That sounds like the introduction to a story where Poseidon and Zeus would walk on chocolate temples.
Okay, so I'm going to put 5 here. I'm going to put a clincher. I may or may not be writing from this, but it doesn't matter. This is just a practice. This is just a practice one. But you can use it if you want to. We could at least get 4. Surely we can at least get 4 things. There are only 2 things about the temple to Poseidon and 2 things about the temple to Zeus. Surely we can do that. Or if we can use up to 7 if we want to. All right, I am going to read the first sentence. A 5th century marble temple to Poseidon, god of the sea, crowns a high promontory south of Athens. What's promontory?
I do not know.
It's a hill. It's a hill, in this case, like overlooking something, so next to the sea. It's a hill that overlooks the sea. Fancy word, promontory. Is this interesting or important? Well,
The fact that the temple was built to Poseidon.
okay, there's a temple. Okay, so
But basically just
our topic sentence is, the Greeks built temples for Poseidon and Zeus. Right? So we don't have to say again, temple, we know we're talking about temples to Poseidon and Zeus. But we do need to say the temple to Poseidon, where is it?
By the sea.
By the sea. Poseidon,
By sea.
by sea. There's a temple to Poseidon by the sea. Oh, that's kind of important because I like the next sentence. It's interesting to me. It was a landmark for sailors returning home to Athens. Landmark for sailors.
that would help Odysseus out very much.
It would.
It would if he didn't actually blind his son in the eye.
Don't do that.
I won't because Cyclops don't exist.
Get on.
And I totally would not blind my best friend in the eye.
Good. So there's a temple for Poseidon by the sea, and it serves as a landmark for sailors. It said, oh, I'm getting close to Athens because there's the temple. And the English romantic poet George Gordon Lord Byron was very moved by its beauty.
Okay.
Don't care. Don't care. Don't know. Don't care. Don't care. Doesn't seem interesting to me. Okay, so let's move on to Zeus. A great international festival of athletics in honor of Zeus was held every 4 years at Olympia, a sanctuary on the banks of the Alpheus River.
The
Whew.
Olympics. We just wrote about that.
Okay. And where are the Olympics?
Olympia?
Olympics. There were Olympics at Olympia. Somebody's in trouble.
No, Christian.
Colossal remains of the great temple of Zeus, built in the 5th century, and other important buildings have been found there. What did they find at Olympia?
Temples.
A temple, what particular temple? Temple of Zeus.
Zeus.
Temple,
Zeus temple found.
Zeus.
Found Zeus's temple.
Okay, found, yeah. Okay, I'm going to put it in whatever order. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this, and it reminds me that that's where they found it, Olympia. Well, that was pretty sparse. I'd love to come up with a 5. Our source doesn't really tell us this, so I feel like I shouldn't say the Olympic Games were held for Zeus. It doesn't actually say that. But they were games for Zeus, that's why there's. So you know what? That's good enough.
Cross out 5.
Cross out 5. Meh.
I'm trying to come up with a 5, actually.
If you can come up with a 5. If we don't like Lord Byron,
How about Poseidon's marble?
okay. We could stick, if you want to, we could stick another line in here, made marble. It's made of marble. I could say made of
If we're
marble.
doing a separate paragraph of what the temples are made of, then why do we don't really
That's a
have
good
that.
point. That's a good point. It would be just sort of desperation. Maybe we could also, if we don't like that, we could say, why is it by the sea? Because Poseidon is the god of the sea.
People are going to know about this.
People may know this. We have to decide if our reader is like pretty ignorant.
Poseidon, the god of the oceans, was honored
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, that one takes some work. I think we could make a paragraph. That information is enough to write a paragraph from. But if you don't love this one, remember you don't have to use it because it's in the box. So you can use columns and materials and design, which obviously we have a lot of design. We have a good amount on columns. We apparently have a lot of materials here. So I don't think this is going to be too much trouble. So does anybody have a question about the process? Just read a fact and then ask yourself, is it interesting or important? And if it is, write it down. And if it's not, don't. And when you get 4 to 7 interesting or important things, you're done and you move on to the next thing. All right? Does anybody have a question at all? Okay. Remember, you don't need to write this paper this week. Just make the outline.
Can we write the paper?
Well, if you choose to write the paper, you need to remember that we are including alliteration and simile. Let me see if I was going to have you add anything else. I don't think so. You need to make sure you remember topic sentence and clincher, all of that. But if you do, and you write it, that's fine. You won't have an assignment. But if you want to wait, I'm going to remind you again of all those things. But if you feel like I so understand topic clincher, I'm so good at similes and alliteration, this is not a problem, then you could go ahead. Are we good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. If you come up with a question about your outline during the week, just call me or email me, and I will answer it for you to the best of my ability. Okay, awesome. Let's take a look at what is going on in Athens after they got rid of the Persians. Last week, we met a guy named Themistocles. Actually, we met him a couple weeks ago, I think. And I read a little bit about Themistocles last week, and he was the guy that when he was a kid, like he didn't spend his vacation time just playing. He was always thinking of speeches to give, and he was always been out of shape if somebody else was getting famous and doing all the great deeds. It's like, oh, I want to do the great deeds. And he did because what was his great idea that saved Greece?
Ships.
Ships. We got to have ships. We got to load all our fighting men on ships. And then he even fixed it by lying, you know. He fixed it so that they wouldn't sail away and go to their homes, and they would stick together so they could all fight together. And it worked beautifully. So Themistocles is famous and riding high, right? Themistocles, you saved us. Thank you, Themistocles. And it's awesome. It's awesome. But sometimes when everybody loves you and says how wonderful you are, some people can handle that. And some people get a little bit puffed up about it, right? They're like, I'm awesome. Apparently I'm awesome. And so the first question I asked you, I said Themistocles was a fine leader, but do you see any character flaws in him? Does Dorothy Mills mention anything about him that maybe is not so positive? Yeah, Grace. He seems very prideful. Do you have a specific example or?
No, but like just overall.
He's kind of sneaky with going and lying.
Okay, he's very sneaky. You know, I didn't even tell you about one of his sneaks. So we have plenty of time. I'll tell you another sneak. So, okay, rewind in your brain back to the day that the Persians are attacking Thermopylae. And you might remember that at the same time, there was a fleet. So Thermopylae is roughly here, okay? I'm sorry that this rolls up, but you get the idea, right? Thermopylae is along here. And the Persian fleet got stationed here, and the Greek fleet was stationed here. And I think we talked about this a little bit. The Persians were going to send some ships around the island and catch them from behind and grab them, sort of like they did at Thermopylae. You know, they took that path. And but a storm hit them and knocked them all to pieces against the rocks down here and just obliterated the ships that they sent. Like a couple hundred ships were gone. Anyway, this was happening at the same time as Thermopylae. Anyway, the Greek ships, Themistocles was there, they were getting really nervous. Like, we're going to lose, we're all going to die. And they were doing the same thing they did at Salamis. I think we just want to sail home. I just want to go home and take care of my family. Mrs. was like, you have to stay here. You have to stay here, and we need to attack. We need to show strength. We need to attack the Persians. And Themistocles wasn't the leader of the fleet. Eurybiades or something like that was the guy in charge of the fleet. And Themistocles kept going to him and saying, we just need to attack. Don't let people leave. And everybody's like, oh, I don't know. I get why they want to leave. So Themistocles, can't remember where he got the money from. He got money. Where did he get that money from? Anyway, he bribed everybody. So the leaders of Athens, I think, gave him money. Sorry, I don't remember that point. It was 30 talents of silver or something like that. So it was a fair amount. Like a talent is a pretty heavy, I don't know how many pounds it is, but it's a lot of silver. And he goes to the chief of the fleet, and he gives him like 3 or 5 talents of it and says, hey, if you don't leave but you attack, I'll give you this. And he bribes him. And then he goes to another leader on another ship, and he bribes him with another, say, 5 talents. So he bribes one guy with 5. He bribes another guy with 5. He had 30. He just kept the rest. Everybody he bribed thought they were the only one that got bribed, and that he gave them all the money. Like, oh, Athens sent me this money, so I would do it. Themistocles made like 20 talents silver profit on the whole thing. He just kept it for himself because he didn't need it for the bribe. Anyway, he got him to do what he wanted. So yeah, so is he afraid to lie? No. If it gets what he wants, he is all in on the lying. And pride, it says, Dorothy Mills says this, he was by nature a great lover of honors and glory, and he liked to appear superior to other people. After the Battle of Salamis, when numbers of the Persian dead were washed ashore, he perceived bracelets and necklaces of gold about them, yet passed on, only showing them to a friend that followed him, saying, take you these things, for you are not Themistocles. I don't need those things. You go ahead. You're not Themistocles. You take the gold bracelets and necklaces and thing off the dead Persians. It's beneath me. So this is more lying. Now the Spartans were becoming more and more jealous of the increasing power of the Athenians. And when they heard of the new walls that were rising all around Athens, they're building walls around the city. They sent envoys there to tell the Athenians they believed any such fortifications were unnecessary. They thought it wiser that there should be no strongly walled city in Attica, for should an enemy ever capture it, the citadel could be used as a base from which the enemy would go out and conquer other places. If war should come again, and the Athenians should feel insecure in their city, Sparta would gladly welcome them in the Peloponnesus. Themistocles suggested he should go to Sparta and talk everything over with the Spartan leaders, and he set out accordingly. However, he did something before he left. He said, okay, I'm going to go to Sparta. I'm going to talk it over with them. But while I'm gone, you build these walls ASAP. You build them as fast as you can. I'm going to go to Sparta, and the other envoys from Athens, don't send them. Don't send them yet, till the walls are half done and tall enough you could defend them. So Themistocles goes to Sparta. Sparta's like, hey, why are you building walls? I'm like, I don't know. Am I building walls? Are we building walls? I don't know. Well, are you just coming, or are other people coming to talk this over? Oh, yeah. I don't know why the other guys aren't here. I wonder what's keeping them. He told them not to come. So he wastes like a week or two. Like, Themistocles, when are they coming? I don't know. And finally they said, well, we're going to send some messengers to Athens and find out what's going on. Themistocles says, sure, go ahead. So he sends a secret message to Athens really fast, and he says, okay, there are Spartan messengers coming to Athens. Don't let them leave. Keep them there. He says, don't put them in prison or anything. Don't chain them up, but stall. Stall them as long as you possibly can. I don't want them coming back and reporting. So he's waiting, the Spartans are waiting, and finally the walls are pretty high, and the other Athenian messengers come, the Spartan messengers come back. And Themistocles walks into the Spartan assembly and says, oh, by the way, don't tell us what we can do and we can't do. Our walls are almost done, and we'll build walls if we want to. So just keep your nose out of our business. He stalled them for weeks while they got the walls ready. Oh my goodness. He had a wonderful, super smart idea. I brought some pictures to show you. I love this book. So I'll bring it around, but we'll see if you can kind of see. I'll describe it and then I'll bring it around, okay? Well, it's kind of an aerial view, looking from the north. And here's Athens. Here's the city of Athens. I'm going to bring it up so the camera. Here's the city of Athens. And if you see, there are walls that go all the way to the shore. This is the island of Salamis and the strait they fought in. Themistocles not only built a wall, this is very hard to hold, a wall around Athens, he built walls going all the way to the port. They're called the long walls because it's like a couple miles. You see what I mean? He built a wall around Athens and he built these long walls. So the port is enclosed in walls too. Can anybody guess why he did it? Why not just put a wall around Athens? Why build walls all the way down to the coast?
War?
Okay, war, said Luke. What do you think?
So, like, other
Yeah, they can't be surrounded. Because what happens when an army surrounds your city? What can't you do? You can't get out and you can't get food in. But you can't, I mean, they could blockade the port, but they can't surround you. What's your idea, Anne?
To control who comes in and out.
And it controls who comes in and out. And so he built these long walls. He also said something else, and it actually ended up coming in very handy. So here's the walls around Athens. That's the Acropolis right there. And there's walls all the way down to the shore, okay? And here's the beach. It's water. Okay, looks like birds flying. And so if there's war, you have extra place for people to hide and get away from the enemy, right? We don't all have to crowd into the city. We can get inside the walls. People can camp out in the walls. And you can bring your food in and out of the city, and no one can stop you. Also, he said, if we do this, and we have to go out to war, our strongest and youngest, strongest fighters can go out and fight. But the people who are like older and weaker, they could defend the walls. Like they could chuck weapons at people standing up on the walls. So we have a place where we can get access to food. We have a place where people can hide from the enemy if they're devastating our country. And we also have a place easily defensible, and the weakest of us could defend it. This was Themistocles doing. It was a really, really good idea. And like I said, you were going to find out, unfortunately, that it came in really, really handy. Let me make sure okay, yes. Oh, you know what? I totally blew up the second question. Why did no one stop me? Let's see if you were listening. What activity of the Athenians caused concern and anger in Sparta? Building walls. Yeah? Yes, yes. And check this out. Without their permission. Do they need permission?
Apparently, yes. Apparently, Sparta was a bigger city than Athens.
See? It insinuates, the Spartans insinuate, you need to ask us before you do things in your city. And Themistocles, like, no, we don't. You do your thing, and we'll do our thing. Don't go telling us what to do. What about Sparta might make them think they have a right to tell other people what to do?
Because they're big, buff, and powerful.
They're big, buff, and powerful. They are the premier land army of Greece. But what has Athens got that Sparta doesn't have?
The blessing of Athena.
The blessing of Athena. And or Mauls, and what did they save themselves with?
Navy.
A navy. Athens is becoming the king of the sea. They're riding high. They took out tons of the Persian fleet. And do you see, it's sort of like, you had two kids on the block, and one of them was like, I'm trying to think. He's like the football champion, okay? And he's awesome. But another one comes along, and he kind of challenges the football captain or champion because he's amazing soccer player. And the football player is, I am the athlete of this neighborhood. And the soccer players, you're not. Like, I'm just as good an athlete as you. And this is sort of Athens. You know what? You're amazing on land. We got the fleet. We got the navy. And stop telling us what to do. Keep this in mind. Do you have an idea what direction this might head? Yeah. Remember we talked about from the very beginning, these city-states do not get along, and now they have a big reason to not get along. Sparta says, you upstart Athens, what do you think you're doing? Themistocles is like, saving Greece. I think that's what we're doing, and you owe us, so stow it and let us do whatever we want. It's kind of what started happening. All right, we'll explore that more in a minute. Or maybe you remember from your reading what happened. Dorothy Mills also told us that the Greeks were debating what to do about these poor people who live over here. All these colonies, who are mostly Athenian colonies. And Sparta said, you know what we should do? We should relocate them. We should just have them all relocate because this is not a safe place. We can't go over there and save them all the time, for crying out loud, from the Persians or whoever. So let's just have them move. We'll find places for them, or we'll move them to Italy. And Athens said, hello, they're our colonies. Keep your hands off our colonies. We'll decide what our colonies are going to do. You get the picture. They're not getting along. So, what was the purpose of the Delian League? And why was it based on the island of Delos, which is here? What is a league? Okay, it's a group. It's a club, a confederation, a group of some sort for some purpose. The Delian League was on the island of Delos. That's why it's the Delian League. But what was its purpose? Why did they form this confederation? Yeah, Emma.
To free the Ionian neighbors from the Persian rule.
Okay. They said, here's what we need to do. We're not relocating these people. We're not relocating these people. They've lived here a long time. But we are going to put together a group of islands and city-states that will all band together, and we'll patrol the sea, and we'll march around, and we'll keep everybody free. And if the Persians try to grab anyone, we'll fight them. If they try to grab an island, we're going to fight them. And it'll be great. And they said, here's the deal. Okay, you guys are all islands or city-states. Congratulations. And
You're crazy. That's
you are a little Themistoclean. It's like, oh, I'm Athens. Wow. Yeah, you can be in his white marble shirt. I know. Marble would be a very uncomfortable shirt. So Athens says to all of you, Christian says to all of you, come join my league. Here's the deal. What do we need to fight against Persia? We need ships, weapons, and what will, what? Material, and money that pays for the other three. So here's the deal. Christian comes around to each of you and he says, okay, we're going to check out, like take a census, how many people live on your island, how many people are in your city, and you can either, would you rather every year have to come up with a certain amount of wood for ships or made ships or men to be in the Navy, or would you rather just give us money every year? And so at first, a lot of people said, oh yeah, we'll build some ships for you. We love this. We love this league. It's an awesome league. I'm so glad to be a part of this league. And they're giving men and ships. But this goes on for a while, like some years, and they're still patrolling. And finally, the island of Julia says, I'm done. I'm so done with making the ships, and you keep taking our sons away. Here, just have some money. Christian's like, great, thanks for the money. And so, pretty soon Olivia and Amelia and Anne, they're all just forking over money because it's so much easier. Like, take the money and you go arrange to have some more ships made. You go get some more weapons, arm some more fighters. Now, the second part of that question that I asked you, why was it on that island of Delos? What's special about Delos? Do you remember, Emma?
It can be easily reached by everybody in the league.
Okay, first benefit, remember where it is. Do you guys see it, or do I need to point to it?
I see it.
Okay, it's kind of in the middle. It says Delos. It's right above Naxos. It's kind of in the middle, so it's easy to get to. What else is there about Delos?
It was the legendary birthplace of Apollo.
Apollo and Artemis were born on Delos. It's sacred. So in other words, it's sort of like it's like a temple. It's sort of neutral territory, right? So it's perfect because it's super conveniently located, and no one's going to fight there because it's a sacred island. It was for decades, it was sacred to Athens. Every year they sent a special ship to Delos with gifts, and it was a thing. So they said, we'll keep the money at Delos. In neutral, sacred territory, everything we collect goes in the treasury at Delos. Wonderful. Except, the more people are giving Christian money, the more Christian feels like he's in charge. He already had more ships than everybody else, but now he's in charge of the making of the ships. He apportions out all the money, and where do we want to spend it on ships? Do we want to spend it on weapons? Do we want to spend it on provisions for the sailors? He's making all the decisions, and everybody else is just handing over money. And then comes the day, the horrible day when the island of Evelyn says, you know what, Christian? We're getting tired of giving you money every year because, I feel like enough time has passed maybe we could just step back on the league a little bit. And frankly, we're willing to take our chances. If the Persians attack us, we realize we're not in the league anymore. We get that, but we're okay with that risk. And Christian said, don't even think about it. You are in, and there is no out. Oh yeah, and so they send, soldiers to rough up on the citizens on the island of Evelyn. Smack them around a little bit and teach them you don't leave. Now, this is starting to sound a little less like a political league for the good of all and a little more like Athens is some mob boss bully that goes around and shakes people down for money and then punishes you if you don't have it. And this is exactly how some people started feeling.
Was Sparta a part of this?
Sparta was not a part of it. Sparta had its own little alliances. Corinth was a friend of Sparta. Other cities on the Peloponnese were friends of Sparta. And the islands and the Ionians, they're friends of Athens. But not so much friends, because you don't get to say, we're just going to step back from this relationship a little bit. Like, no, we're not. Then Christian said, since Athens is really in charge of dealing with the money and deciding what to spend it on, it just would be a lot more convenient if we kept it at Athens instead of Delos. And they moved the treasury to Athens. Oh my goodness. And the islands of Julia and Evelyn are like, what just happened? Athens just took the money. They just took it. And guess what, guys? They didn't spend it all on policing the Persians. As a matter of fact, I told you next week, not only are you doing an outline about Greek temples and architecture and things, but we're also going to be reading about what they built in Athens. They built what some people consider to be some of the most beautiful buildings ever created, certainly ever created in the ancient world, in Athens. Some of them, bits of them are still standing, and even the bits are pretty. And who paid for it? The Delian League. Oh my goodness. And people are like, Christian, why are you building all these buildings? Because we're a superpower. We're the head of the league. We have to have a decent looking city. Visitors come here from all around. They want it to look nice. We got to have a nice place to show them. And that money is what paid for the famous temple of the Parthenon that we're going to look at next week and all of those.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. So, okay. Themistocles. Let's go back to Themistocles. Themistocles wasn't the whole mastermind of everything I just said. Let's cut him a little bit of slack. However, everybody got tired of Themistocles. Oh, actually, well, we talked about this last week. Let's talk about Pausanias first. The Spartan king Pausanias was policing the area of the Hellespont. And I mentioned this last week, and then Dorothy Mills told you. He hung out with a lot of luxurious Persian types, and he started to think that was a really nice way to live, and the whole Spartan life was not so good. So he started dressing in fancy clothes, and he tried to marry the king of Persia's daughter. And anyway, the Spartans found out about it, and they called him home, and he died in prison up on charges of treason. He was going to hand Greece over to Persia. And they replaced him. And they replaced him with Athenians. The people that were working with the king of Sparta said, I don't know if we can trust those Spartans. And Athens has been good. Athens has been cool. This was before they took all the money. Athens saved us. Let's let Athens come over here. So all the power shifted over to Athens. Athens had the money. Athens had the power. Athens had the control. But Themistocles had a very biting tongue. And when his enemies attacked him, he would remind them, much oftener than was necessary of the great services he had performed for Greece and for Athens in particular. Imagine you have a sibling, and on the day it was not their day to do it, they took the trash out for you. Like it was your trash day, but they did it for you. And you say thank you. And that's great. Except imagine that sibling every day. Remember how I took out the trash? You owe me. Do you remember? Do you remember when I did that for you? Don't forget, you owe. Now, are you thankful to the sibling for taking out the trash? No, you wish they'd just be quiet. You kind of wish they'd never done it in the first place, and you had just taken out the trash because they've ruined it. Themistocles kept trotting around saying, you know, we saved Greece. We means me, because I thought the whole ship idea up. Yeah, they got tired of it. At last, serious accusation was brought against him that he was in communication with the Persians and about to play the traitor. There was no proof of this, but Themistocles believed in the policy of making peace with the Persians. There was no fear that they would again attack the Greeks, and Themistocles saw that wealth and prosperity would come to Athens through trading with Persia. But this was very unpopular, and feeling grew more and more bitter against Themistocles, until finally he was ostracized. They had a vote, and Themistocles lost. And he had to leave, and he didn't ever come back. Does anybody remember where he went? Now he is so glad. He is so glad. Remember how he sent the message? Like, oh, king, the Greeks want to sail away, but I wanted to be your friend, so I wanted to tell you. Oh, king, the Greeks want to go break down the bridge across the Hellespont, but I stopped them because I'm your friend. So the story is he traveled sort of incognito, on the run, hiding out in, caves and huts, and he gets to the capital of Persia. And he sends a message, I want to talk to the king. And they're like, who are you? No. I will only tell the king. Tell him he'll be glad he talked to me. So he goes in, finally, he says, I'm Themistocles. And they say that the king of Persia was so excited and happy that night he kept like waking up from his sleep or muttering in his sleep, I have Themistocles the Athenian. I have Themistocles the Athenian. Now, before we diss Themistocles, he did get thrown out of Athens. He had to go somewhere. And the king of Persia gave him a nice place. They moved his family there and everything and really honored him. But eventually the king of Persia said, you know what, I'm going to go to Egypt because the Egyptians are rebelling and there are Greeks there helping them rebel. Themistocles, you fit out a fleet and come with me and help me. In other words, come to Egypt and fight against Greeks there. And he wouldn't do it. And the story is he killed himself. He killed himself instead of fighting against Greeks. I'm not in favor of killing yourself. In the ancient world, it had a different, they felt differently about it, but for them it was not a dishonorable thing to do, and they didn't consider it a sin. But it says something about Themistocles, that even in exile, even after his city had thrown him out, he refused to actually fight against them. He'll take perks from the king of Persia. He'll take a nice home and good food and fancy dishes and everything. That's awesome. But I won't go fight against my people alongside him. So it's weird. For years I read this. The story, the historian that tells the story says he drank bull's blood and died. I'm like, what is it? It sounds gross, but is it fatal to drink bull's blood? So
if it had a disease of some sort.
Possibly, but I had a student 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, who looked this up, which I'd never done. Bull's blood. Well, the blood that comes out of bulls. Bull's blood is the name of a poison. So apparently I misread that for all those years. I thought it was literal blood, but apparently something called bull's blood is a type of poison. So he drank a type of poison and died. So, maybe he redeemed himself a little bit there at the end by refusing to fight Greece. I don't know. So the last question I asked you is, who stepped up and took leadership after Themistocles died and Aristides died? Who was it? Pericles. Pericles is one of the most famous guys. Here's a picture of a bust. It's a bust. A bust is like from the chest up, a statue from the chest up. He has this helmet. This is a helmet. But the joke is apparently Pericles had a rather cone-shaped head. It was rather funny looking, tall. So he liked to wear a helmet around because it hid his head. And so every representation we have of Pericles has his helmet. There was a comedian who wrote a funny play, and they referred to him as Squillhead. This isn't a very nice thing to do. What kind of leader was Pericles? Did anybody note anything? Did he seem different? Does he seem greedy and proud? You probably guess, because I'm asking you that question, probably the answer is no, or I wouldn't ask. Here's what Dorothy Mills tells us. He also was a lover of glory, and power, but by the laws Pericles made, it became possible for every freeborn Athenian citizen, no matter how poor he was, to take an active part in the government. Full democracy. I don't care how much money you have. Every Athenian man gets a vote. He loved beautiful things, and he made a famous speech. Or a historian that wrote it down made it up. And he said this: Athens is the school of Hellas, of Greece. Athens is the school of Greece. Everyone looks to us to know, what does it mean to be Greek? What does it mean to be cultured? And this was Pericles' mission. I'm going to make Athens the strongest, best, most beautiful, most just and fairest place where everybody gets to vote.
Athens is just.
Well, I don't know about taking the money.
Are you? Sometimes.
Sometimes.
I don't know you.
Sometimes is not. We can't only be virtuous sometimes. If we're only virtuous sometimes, we're not virtuous, right? None of us is virtuous all the time because we're human.
Yes.
So this, what you're going to read next week, and by the way, I want you to read, we're skipping a couple of chapters. So this is the alert. Red alert, red alert. We're skipping some chapters. We're moving up to chapter 15, and it's called The Temples of Athens. By the way, I have just made an executive decision on the fly, and it is this. If you find information in this chapter that you would like to add to your outline, you may use it. If they talk about the temple of Zeus in Olympia, except it won't be because it's Athens, but that temple of Poseidon is near Athens, or if they talk about building materials or they talk about columns, you have my permission to use it.
Bless you.
Okay. So it is called The Temples of Athens, chapter 15 in my book. But one of the chapters we're skipping, I want to talk about just like for 5 minutes, and then we're going to talk about the end of the Trojan War. And it is theaters, plays.
Yes.
The Greeks, and this is wonderful that you guys were in this play, because the Greeks are responsible for what we think of as the theater. Theater is even a Greek word. It comes from the word theasthai, to see. It's the place where you go to see things. Kind of means the same as spectacle. A spectacle in English means something that's amazing to see. Like the 4th of July fireworks were quite the spectacle. And specto means I see in Latin. But theastai means see in Greek. A theater is the place where you go to see. So apparently, I mean, nobody even knows how this started, honestly. But there were festivals for the god Dionysus, right? He's the party god, right? Lots of wine, lots of craziness. Dionysus. And they would have a festival for him. And it became customary for groups of people to write and learn songs in honor of Dionysus. Great. So for a while, they're learning songs. We don't really have any of them. But tragos was goat. And they would sacrifice goats. Goats was the sacrifice for Dionysus. They sacrificed these goats, and then they'd sing their song at tragoidia. Tragoidia means goat song. Tragoidia. But we get the word tragedy. A tragedy in the sense of a play that is presenting a tragedy. Tragoidia is a goat song. And so eventually, about the time that the Persians are invading, they're having a festival for Dionysus every year in Athens. And at the base of the Acropolis, they built a theater. If you stand, I have a picture of this. If you stand on the top of the Acropolis and look down, you can see the theater below. This is what it looks like today. So if you take a picture, this is zoomed in, you know. But if you take a picture standing up on the Acropolis and look down, you see this.
Oh, so like a theater.
It's a little theater down there. And they would have a festival every year. And people would write plays. And every writer had to submit 3 plays, 3 tragedies, and a comedy. And it was a set. And they would have judges. And here's on the front, you can see this is the Acropolis. And then here's the theater over here. Drawn in. And they would judge who did the best trilogy of plays every year. And we have some of the winners. We know what some of the winners were. We still have their plays. They're still performed sometimes. In the summer, maybe you know Genesius Guild at Lincoln Park in Rock Island does Greek plays. Some of they produce them again. And a lot of the words we use to discuss theater are all from the Greeks. So for instance, so here's there was a semicircular area here. This isn't really, I'm not very good at writing do perspective. And then a backdrop, you know, and there might be a door in it or something so people can go back and forth. And this is called the skene. In Greek it's like a skene. And it's scene, the scenery, skene. And this is the part where the people dance around and sing and say their lines. It's the orchestra. They called it the orchestra. Now, often, it's an orchestra pit. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes the stage is up here, and it's where the orchestra is. But originally, it was like the chorus was dancing and singing their little song, and the actors would come out and say their lines. Yeah?
Because on the stage underneath is a place where all the orchestra plays their songs.
Yes, yes.
In the theater at the school where my dad used to teach.
Oh, yeah. So we get this all from Greece. All this theater talk is from Greece. And so these plays told often stories from mythology. One of the very first winners, one of the most famous series of plays is about Agamemnon coming home and getting killed.
Of course.
But it was 3 plays. So in the first play, Agamemnon came home and he got killed. And then in the second play, his son Orestes, Apollo told Orestes, you have to go avenge your father by killing your mother.
Whoa.
So he does, except the Furies are these really mean goddesses that if you kill your parents, they drive you crazy. So he kills his mother, and then the Furies come after him. And like, Apollo told me. He's like, we don't care. You killed your mother. And they're horrible. There's even a story that when this play was done, the Furies were so hideous that some lady fainted in the theater to look at them because it was so ghastly. So the third play, Orestes says, Apollo, what's the deal? You have to save me. And they said, you know what? I will save you, says Apollo. Orestes, let's go to Athens and we're going to ask Athena to judge whether it was right for you to kill your mother or wrong. So Athena says, well, in Athens, we have courts of law and juries. And so she calls a jury, and she calls judges, and they all cast votes, and they decide to let Orestes free because Apollo told him to do it, and because she did kill his dad. Anyway, so they would sit in these theaters and they just watch in awe these stories unfold. There was a famous story about a man. Oh, should I tell this story?
Yes.
I never stop when I should. So there was a prophecy that said he would kill his father and marry his own mother.
Oedipus.
Yes. And so he ran away from home because he didn't want it to happen. And while he was traveling, he met some guy at a place where 3 roads came together, and the guy was really rude to him and he killed him. And then he went to Thebes, who was suffering because they had this terrible monster called a Sphinx, and it was killing people. It asks you questions, and if you can't answer the question, it kills you, right? And so nobody could answer, but Oedipus answered. This guy, Oedipus, answered. So he goes, and the queen says, awesome, you know what? I don't know what happened to my husband. Apparently, he's died, so you could marry me. And he does. And he doesn't find out until later that those people he ran away from were his adoptive parents. But the king and queen of Thebes were his real parents because they had heard a prophecy that their son would kill his father and marry his mother. So they did what you do to babies, right? They threw him out. But somebody found him. And this was sort of the most famous, horrible tragedy. And the sad thing was, because Oedipus tried to do everything right. Like the minute he found out he was going to do something wrong, he ran away. Like, I will never see my mother and father again because I don't want to hurt them. But he ran straight to his real mother and father and killed them. So we have plays about that. There were hundreds of plays, but we only have, of tragedies, we only have, I don't know, somewhere between 30 and 35. And the rest are just gone. They're lost. We don't know what they were. They don't know what they said. Sometimes we know a couple of lines from it, but we don't know the rest. This was a big deal. I mean, when I say theater, for us it's like, I know, I like to go to the movies, I like to go to a play. But no, this was like going to church and going to be entertained all at the same time. And plus, they tried to teach the Athenians lessons through theater. So we didn't read that chapter. Honestly, if you want to read the theater chapter, that's fine. But there's a big, long section from one of the plays. And so if you would like to find out, I don't even remember which play it is. But anyway, if you want to read it, it's absolutely optional. It's interesting, but it just, it's about Iphigenia. Yeah, Iphigenia and Taurus. It's the alternate story that Iphigenia didn't really get killed, but she got whisked away to an island north of the Black Sea, and she served as a priestess to Artemis. Anyway, and then her brother comes and finds her eventually. All right, I had to tell you a little bit about that because this is something we still do. Like I said, Olivia and Emma, I just went to see in a theater a play based on this. They've been doing this for at least 2,500 years, having plays like this. And as far as we know, they're the first people in history that said, we could have people up there pretending to be other people. We could say things like they're the other people. Like, that's awesome. At first, it was just one person and a chorus. So like a group would come and they'd sing a little song explaining things to you. And then somebody would come up and have a little speech. And then the chorus would sing. Then later, a guy said, oh, what if we had 2 people come out and they could talk to each other? It's like, boom, boom. And then like, oh, what if we had 3 people? And they had fancy contraptions like, underneath the orchestra at the stage, They had trapdoors where like gods could come up from the underworld, and they had cranes that could lower gods down from above and fix the problem. It was very cool.
Yeah, at my theater we have Shakespeare's.
Sometimes they would, like, if somebody got murdered, like Agamemnon getting murdered, which we'll talk about here in a minute. They didn't do it in front of you, like you'd hear him, help, help. And then the doors would open, and there would be a platform on wheels. And they just roll out the platform, and he's just, and Clytemnestra's there is like, oh, I killed him. I'm awesome. But you didn't see it happen in front of you because it would be hard. It wouldn't look very real, but they staged it and covered him with fake blood or whatever, and then they rolled him out on stage. It's like, here he is. So they had tricks, special effects, right? Special effects.
What did they use? Ketchup?
I doubt it.
I know they have it.
I doubt they had ketchup. Okay, we finished the Trojan War book,
Right.
and I forgot to bring something that I wanted to bring.
Sorry.
Oh, poo. How did the Greeks finally take Troy? What'd they do?
They hid in a wooden horse and ransacked the city
They-
while everyone was celebrating.
They hid in a horse. I happen to have two Trojan horses. One Evelyn and Olivia's family, or no, Evelyn's family. No, Olivia, you had nothing to do with that. Evelyn's family made me this lovely Trojan horse and Trojan war set. I also have a cardboard one, and I was going to bring one of them, and I was going to bring maybe some of the figures, but I forgot. Maybe another week. Maybe I could bring it next week. Yeah, one of the most famous stories in all history, the Trojan horse. And people say Trojan horse, and they simply mean a trick, like it was a Trojan horse, and they don't mean it was literally a horse. But this was literally a horse.
A wooden horse.
And who thought up this great idea?
Odysseus.
Odysseus, of course.
The greatest mind of his age.
Greatest mind of his age. Do you know what occurred to me? Emma and Olivia. Do you need to use the bathroom, Emma?
No,
Okay. Oh, okay. I'll talk loud so you can hear me. Does anybody remember what the Cyclops' name is? Okay, you guys have said Polyphemus. I always say Polyphemus. You guys were probably right, but I don't. Polyphemus. But here's the funny thing. So poly means many. And I looked this up because I wanted to know what the Phemus meant. And it meant like big talker, big storyteller, the Phemus part. But Odysseus over and over is described as Polytropos et Polymetus. And this means man of many ways. Some English translations call him the man of twists and turns. And then this means man of many thoughts, right? Very clever. And I was watching the play and I thought, oh my gosh, the Cyclops is a poly, but so is Odysseus. He's Polytropos and Polymetus. Anyway, I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me go off on that tangent. Odysseus said, here's the deal. I got it. I know what we're going to do. We're going to set some guy up, Sinon, poor Sinon, and we're going to pretend we abandoned him. Sinon, learn your lines. The rest of the Greeks sail and they hide behind an island. They build an enormous horse and they fill it with soldiers. And they put Sinon there. And he's dirty and he's in rags and he's running away, and the Trojans come out and say, hey, you, come back here. Sinon's like, oh, you might as well just kill me now. You'll be doing the Greeks a favor if you kill me. Odysseus hates me and he's got it in for me, so I ran away, and then they just left me. They've decided to leave. And the Trojans are like, oh, tell us more. Well, where are they coming back? No, they're not coming back. They left me here because they hate me. And they're like, well, what's the deal with the horse? Oh, well, they found out that they had to build a horse in honor of Artemis, or the gods wouldn't give them favorable winds to get home. The gods told them, you're never going to take this city. Just go home. And so they left. But they left this offering so Artemis would help them get home. But, oh, Trojan men, if you bring it inside the city might fall. only if you don't ever take it inside your city will will it be safe. The Greeks don't want you to take that horse inside your city. You're like, if the Greeks don't want us to take it in the city, we will take it in the city. We want to do the opposite of whatever the Greeks want. And Sinon's like, well, that's why they made it so big, so you couldn't get it in. We're like, oh, we'll break down part of the wall. It's awesome. So they haul this huge horse in. And the priest, Laocoon, comes running. He's like, what are you, nuts? He said, either this horse is full of soldiers or some other strategy, but I fear Greeks even when they're giving gifts. I'm like, oh, Laocoon, shut up. He says, no. Throws his spear in to the side of the horse, and they hear a little clang, clang, like armor inside. But nobody pays attention because two huge serpents just come out of the sea and they just eat Laocoon and his two sons. And like, he offended Artemis by throwing that spear in the horse. We need to get that horse inside the city as fast as possible. And they did. And
Why
that,
did the snake eat him?
what?
Why did the snake eat him and his sons?
Because the gods did not want to stop the fall of Troy. And the way it was going to fall is to drag this horse in. They didn't want anyone to stop them from dragging that horse in. So at night, Sinon opens the door. The soldiers drop out, and they just start killing people. In the meantime, Sinon goes and shines a light on the wall, and the fleet sails back from around the island they're hiding behind. It's over. It's over. But one particular thing was kind of important. Not all the Trojans got killed. And it says, Aeneas, who's Aphrodite's son, Aeneas walked, it says, weary and despairing, the little band trudged into the hills, looking back from time to time at the red light of their burning city cast upon the sky. Aeneas walked with his son, and the boy's presence gave him courage, since it reminded him of the words of his mother, the goddess Aphrodite. You shall live to found a great city, she had said, and your sons' sons shall be rulers of Asia and of Greece and of all parts of the world. Please remember that. Aeneas was a Trojan who got away because the gods said, Aeneas, you're destined to found another group of people that will rule someday. We're going to meet Aeneas again. We talked about poor Agamemnon getting butchered by his wife, Clytemnestra. And why did she do that again? Because he killed their daughter, and she also had a boyfriend. Aegisthus. She had a boyfriend who was actually her husband's cousin.
Oh. Okay, that's even worse.
And it even gets worse because Agamemnon and Menelaus, their dad's name was Atreus. Have I told you about the curse of the Atreidae? No. Oh, you'll love this. We'll end with this. No. Atreus and Thyestes were brothers. Atreus is Menelaus and Agamemnon's dad, and Thyestes was their uncle, right? And they had an argument. I can't remember who, somebody stole somebody's wife. I'm guessing that Thyestes stole Atreus' wife. Anyway, and they had a kind of a falling out. But Atreus said, Thyestes, you're my brother, and I really want to make it up to you. We shouldn't fight. Why don't you come for dinner? Why don't you come to my house for dinner? All right, you're already laughing because it's never good. It's never good. They have a bad habit of eating things they should not eat in Greece. And in this case, Atreus, what?
Bull's blood?
Oh no, worse than that. Atreus captured Thyestes' sons, killed them and cooked them and fed them to.
Oh.
It's like,
I told you wouldn't like this story.
He did the one guy who went to Tartarus and couldn't eat or drink anything.
Yes,
I
yes.
can't remember the name.
Tantalus.
Oh,
Yeah, yes, this has happened before. And so it happened again. And so now, Thyestes had one son that was really little and didn't get captured and cooked and eaten? It was Aegisthus. So remember this. So Agamemnon sails away to war. Clytemnestra, his wife, stays home. She takes up with Aegisthus, her husband's cousin. Aegisthus, whose brothers were eaten by Agamemnon's dad. His brothers were killed by Agamemnon's dad. So he's angry too, in other words. It's called the curse of the Atreidai. It's bad news, right? Like the kids get eaten, and then Agamemnon gets murdered, and then Orestes murders his mother. It's bad news. It's bad news. So this was a very famous story in ancient Greece. But the most famous of all, we'll finish with a few words about the Odyssey. I'm a little disappointed that in our retelling, we don't really hear about his adventures, right? It just kind of moves straight to the fact that he's gone for 10 years after the war, and all these guys want to marry his wife, and they don't understand about being good guests, right? And they're just going to take his wife and take his kingdom and eat all his food. And he comes home and he just takes them all out. It's very satisfying. But he had lots of exciting adventures on the way. The main reason he didn't get back for 10 years, does anybody know where he spent most of his time?
Ogygia.
Yes, and with whom?
Calypso.
With Calypso, a goddess who really loved him. And he's like, Odysseus, just stay here with me. I'll make you immortal, and we can just live on this island. It'll be awesome. And the Odyssey tells us that every day Odysseus goes down to the beach and he cries because he just wants to go home. He misses his wife and his son. He's living with a goddess who's offering to make him immortal. He's like, but I want my home. I want my kingdom, and I want my family. Dear Odysseus, who just wants to go home. Yeah. All right. For next week, we are starting a new book. So you're reading that chapter, the Temples of Athens, whatever it was called. And we're doing an outline. And we are starting a book called The Cat of Bubastes. The Cat. And we're reading chapters 1 through 5. The cat.
It sounds like an ancient cat that goes on missionaries with his friend Jason.
It is an ancient cat. We are going to visit Egypt in the Cat of Bubastes. So I have a boatload of weird and interesting Egyptian-themed stuff to bring in to show you, so it'll be fun. But start the Cat of Bubastes for next week. All right. See you next week, guys.